Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We are your hosts, Karan and Kristen. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble.
Today we are chatting with Eric Patton. Eric helps people heal and be fully present in their lives instead of their stories. He's the co-founder of Inspire Change Co. along with his wife, Jenny. Together, they transform personal relationships by aligning the mind, body, and soul. Eric is a pirate who goes against the grain and is willing to stand up for what he believes in, no matter what the cost. And we're thrilled to be chatting with you today.
I'm thrilled to be here. And what an awesome intro was that. Oh my goodness. Oh, like so impressed. I'm like, dang, I need to take some notes right now.
We learned, have you listened to Ryan Sprague's podcast, Highly Optimized?
I have, yes.
We learned from him, like he was an inspiration for writing like the best intros, because you get on and you're like, oh man, I feel so seen.
Yeah.
Well, we want to pump you up and celebrate you. So
Yeah, well, I'm pumped. It worked.
Yay. So we'd love to hear about what started you on your pirate journey and led you to where you are today.
Yeah. So for me, I think a lot of it started with me. We had a fire at our house back in 2017. It was actually a week before we were supposed to get married. And so we still got married. We got married in Tahiti. And when we came back to a lot of destruction around the house, having to rebuild our home. And then we ended up getting a free book by Brendan Burchard. And it's, I say free. It's one of those, like, you pay $1 to get it, and then you end up doing all these coaching packages. So it ended up costing like hundreds, but that's how it started. And that's when we really made a decision that we really wanted to up our coaching ability. Both of us have been coaching for about 10 years now. And at that point, we were just noticing that people had similar stories about why they couldn't do things. They were saying the same types of things. And we were struggling to figure out ways to help them. And both Jenny and I really enjoy helping people. Like, I really enjoy those moments where you can get through to somebody and it clicks, right? I call it the light bulb moment, where like you can see it on their face and their whole body expression. They're like, oh my God, like I can do hard things. Like I can change my life. And so we live for those few handful of seconds, right, that you get in coaching sessions. So that led us to Enlifted, which Jenny found first. And Mark actually got me with one line. And I still remember it, and I still mess with him about this to this day. So I had been public speaking since I was 13, 14 years old. I grew up in foster care, and I went to a camp for foster youth. And as soon as I was old enough to help them with fundraising, they were asking me to speak. So I was speaking for a long time, very comfortable in front of an audience. And Mark said to me, he said, well, there's one thing to be confident in your speaking ability. It's a whole other thing to be comfortable in your speaking ability. And I was like, dang, you're actually really correct about that. And he was like, so what we do with Enlifted is we get you comfortable, not just confident. Confident is up here, comfortable is down. And you're very like, you can handle any sort of conversation that comes up. And so that's how he got me. Jenny started first, then I started a few months later, and then we did level 2 and 3 together after that. And it has been a game changer, both for us as well as for our clients. Not even just that, like just our friends and our family and anybody that we run into. Feel like we're kind of like just like the wise people that people just are constantly asking us stuff, and we have the answers to them, and it's incredible. And so we love it, we enjoy it, and it's we're in it for the long haul. So
I've gotten to be around you too as you're having some of those conversations, and you go deep, like talking ancestry, and both of you have some good ancestry type stories that you've worked on, as well as what you talk about too. So yeah, you two go deep, and
we definitely do.
It's a pleasure being able to sit and listen to that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a really good conversation. over at Terry Black's. So we did have a really good conversation. Yeah. That was like the first time we met too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we enjoy it. I enjoy getting out of the surface level. And I feel like in our world right now, everything tends to be, I mean, not everything, but a lot of things tend to be very surface level. And people don't tend to take a harder look, both at the world and at themselves and the way that we fit into the world. And so we like to encourage people to do that, right? Look a little deeper, take a second look. My favorite phrase that we do with people is when you're taking a look at things, we want compassionate curiosity. So you want to be curious about things you can do better at, but you also want to do it in a compassionate way for yourself, you know? So.
Yeah.
So,
Karan. Okay. Like Karan looks like she's going to say something. So.
I just want to hear a little bit more about what kind of coaching you guys do.
Yes. So what we talked about in the intro is that we work with people on personal relationships specifically, and we focus on the mind, body, soul connection. So when we talk about the mind, we focus a lot on language. So that's where Enlifted comes into play, or how our language impacts our mental ability to get to what we want, both figure out the goals that we really want, and then start taking steps towards them. And then as far as the body goes, the body's probably the thing that we previously did the most, because we both worked in fitness. I played soccer in college, and then I also played, I got very close to playing professionally as well. So I've done a lot of things with the body, so we're very comfortable. We're also certified nutritionists. So we first, when we first started dating when we were 18, we had this idea that there was a mind-body connection, right? And Jenny was going to school for kinesiology. I was going to school for psychology. So that's where the mind-body connection came in. I think the biggest thing that shifted for us over the last few years was the soul piece, right? Where that's the glue, or that's the essence of who we are, that's deeper than just what we do, right? Like, I don't like talking about humans like simple. Like, we're not simple. We don't just go to work and then come home, pay bills. Like, we're much more complex and much more powerful than that. So for me, what we tend to focus a lot on with the soul is actually human design. I'm not sure if either one of you guys are familiar with it. Yeah, so we do a lot. I actually have, I do all kinds of readings for people. Not gotten certified in it, but we just deep dived into it big time, both for ourselves and for other people. And I find that it's really helpful for people because it gives them a different insight into their personality and how they fit into the world. So our coaching combines all three. And it really is meeting people where they are and then helping them get to where they want to go.
And well, I know what human design is. I've briefly introduced Karan into what human design is. Will you explain for people that may not know what human design is, what it is, and how knowing what your human design is can help impact how you move in the world?
Yes, absolutely. So the way I like to describe human design from a simple point, and then I'll go into a little more detailed. But if you've ever watched Soul, the Disney movie Soul, it's the pavilions that they go through, right, for personality, right? And I like to think of it like that, right? And that's a really simple way of looking at it. But that's the idea is that 88 days before you're born, your design is created. And this is the essence of who you are and how you should fit into the world. Now, unfortunately, what happens when we get into the world is the world tries to shape us, right? And our experiences start to shape us. And sometimes we get away from those things that we're designed for. Right. So that's the simple way I like to design, because a lot of people have seen Soul and a lot of people have seen the pavilions. Right. So I'm like, have you seen the pavilions? Yeah. Cool. That's your design. Right. And that's before you even get Earthside. Right. So then when we go a little bit deeper, human design is really about how we fit into the world and how we can best use the things we're naturally gifted at to help us live a more fulfilled life. So for example, of how we use it in relationships, right? Because everything Jenny and I talk about are relationships. Both are relationships with ourselves, right? And then relationships with other people. So it's not just a romantic sense. It's also a sense of like, I have to have a solid relationship with me before I can have a relationship with anybody else, whether that be platonic or romantic, right? So the first thing we do is I will go in and I will figure out what's your design, right? We like to keep it simple with people because it can get very complex very quickly, right? So I myself am a manifester. So for me, things flow very easily, very naturally gifted at a lot of different things, right? Jenny is a projector. So for her, she's a natural born leader. She can see what other people need and put them in the right position, right? There's also reflectors, which are a very small percentage of the population. And then the majority of the population are generators. Generators are typically people who they're your average person in the workforce. We desperately need a lot of people that can carry out a vision, right? So me as a manifestor, I'm somebody that I can see a big picture thing, but if you ask me to go and do all the nitty gritty, I'm probably not going to be that good at it. I can see it very, very, very well, right? But it's just a little difficult for me to get into the smaller things, which is where generators come in. They can do those. When you give them a little direction, they'll go crush something like that, right? Recently, there's been a new one that's come in, which is manifesting generator. And those are people that are a little bit of both, right? So they can do the hard work things, the detail things, and they can also understand the bigger picture of things as well. So we like to go simple with people with that. We don't like to go too far into it because I think that it's one of those things. It's just like astrology, right? If you get thrown into a box, then you'll just start doing exactly that thing, right? And you're just like, oh, this is just how I am, right? And I don't really believe that. I don't really believe that like people are just this one way and you can't do anything about it, right? Like I believe that we have certain tendencies that we will lean towards that will help us live more fulfilled, but at the same time, it's our responsibility to do something with those gifts too. So you have to actually take the action steps in it and do something with it. So that's where we start with human design. It's actually a lot of fun. If you haven't actually gotten a reading or looked into it, it's incredible how how much it resonates with people. I love doing it, and I just like letting them read it. So I have an app on my phone where I just let them read the first part, and then I just like stare at them. Kind of weird, right? And I'm just like, and then they inevitably are like this, and then they go, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And I'm like, I know, that's why I gave it to you.
Yeah. There's my human design app that I had gotten 3 months free access to. So I recently started playing with that. And I already knew a little bit, like I 1-3-3-1 manifesting generator. Nice. So I knew little bits of it, and realizing too, like there's arrows on your chart that can help you figure out, are you good at strategizing or are you not? Are morning routines your thing or are they not? And I'm like, I like how it told me morning routines weren't my thing. And I was like, good to know, because I have a really hard time sticking to those. Like, doing the same thing every day is not my style. But just even though it can put you in the box, it's also helpful to have some confirmation on things where you're like, it may feel like something, because we are attempting to put ourselves in a box based off the world anyways, to be like, I'm not fitting into this box. And then you see your human design like, oh, okay, because that's not my box to fit into. Like I have these things, and now that I know this, I'm able to give myself more grace. So that's what I've enjoyed looking into it.
Yeah, it's funny how you see those things and you're like, dang, that's why I do this. You know? So I used to always, for me, it was weird for me growing up. I would pick up a new sport or some new activity, and people would be like, are you sure you haven't done this before? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've never done this before, at least not in this lifetime. And they're like, no, you're so really good you're really good at this. And then I did mine, and mine popped up as the natural wise sage. And I was like, dang, this is why people have been coming to me since I was like 4th grade. When I was in like 4th, 5th grade, people will come to me and talk, like all the girls will talk to me about the boys will talk to me about the girls all the time. I'm like, why are you guys talking to me? Like, I don't know anything about this any more than you guys do, you know? And then later on in life, I'm like, this is why it happens to me so much, because it's just part of who I am. And now when I go into something new, I'm so much more open to it now. I'm like, cool, I can take in all this information and do it quickly, because I know it's just part of who I am.
So as someone that doesn't know a lot about human design, how is it different from something like a Myers-Briggs, where it's like, cool, this is how you're like, you generally are. You're like whatever, FJ or whatever it is.
Sure. So this is actually really interesting that you bring up Myers-Briggs, because Jenny and I were just talking about this yesterday. So the Myers-Briggs test was created, I believe, in the 70s, 60s or 70s. And the tests that you take now are actually very inaccurate. So they themselves have sued a lot of the different companies that use them because they're misutilizing the way they test. The actual Myers-Briggs test is long and drawn out. It should take you like an hour and a half to take the whole test. Right?
It's not the free 20 question quiz.
If you're taking one of those, I can almost guarantee you it's incorrect. Almost guarantee you, without even like taking a look at it and seeing it. And the only reason why I know this too is because of my background in psychology. Right. So I've taken the real one, and I'm a very good test taker, very good. And it took me just over an hour to take it. So with Myers-Briggs, it's a very like generalized concept about people. And I actually like to compare it to astrology, right? Because if you do something like a natal chart too, that's similar to like doing it, it's just it's a bunch of general information that, for me, we talked about boxes, right? It puts you into this like box, and you're like, boom, you're like that. I'm this type of person, right? But the thing about these personality tests is if you're in a bad mood, your test will be different. If you're in a great mood, you'll be in a different one, right? So then how do you know if that's what you actually are or not, right? One of the things I like about human design is that it combines multiple schools of thought, right? So it takes a little bit of astrology. It takes a little bit from the I Ching, which is an Asian book that's been around for a couple thousand years as well. That's a formula for how you can interact with the world. And the Kabbalah, which is part of the Islam culture as well. So it takes a lot of different schools of thoughts and puts them into one. And they're very clear about, at least for me, the people that I've spoken with about it, they're very clear about like, this isn't the end all be all. Like you shouldn't just listen to this and be like, cool, I'm just going to do that forever. And I won't do anything else outside of it. They're very encouraging to play with it, like see how you like it, figure it out. And so getting back to your question about the Myers-Briggs, I would say they're all like, I guess because it's still personality related, you could still put them into the same field, I suppose. But for me, it's the test taking aspect now of like, it's completely dependent on what type of mood you're in and how you want to answer a question for the testing.
Have you heard about the Clifton Strength Finder?
So I have seen it, but I haven't actually done it.
So Karan and I've only found out my top 5 strengths, but Karan, you got them all listed, right?
Yeah, basically, I can't even remember how many strengths there are, and it lists them. You take a big test, and it lists them in order. So they don't call it a weakness; it's just your lowest strength.
Sure.
Your thing you're least strengthy on.
Right.
And what I found that to be really helpful was like, so one of my high strengths is like connection, like one-on-one connection. But one of my lower strengths is like inclusion. So helping people feel included. So, I do personal training, and I also teach group classes. I'm like, so how can I killing it on the one-on-one training because I can connect with my clients really well, but realizing that I'm maybe not, soft talk, acknowledge, letting everyone in my group class feel included. So even just taking something like that and like, okay, purposefully, mindfully taking a moment to have a one-on-one connection with each person in that group class. Cause I know as a whole, I'm not doing a very good job of making everyone feel welcome and included. So it was really interesting. And it, one of my top strengths was harmony. And which is really just like avoidance of conflict. And I'm like, that's why my 5-year career as a police officer didn't go really well. Like, I'm not good with conflict. So it was really eye-opening just to see like, and I don't think that those are things that you're either born with or not. But as I am now at 45 years old, what are the things I'm good at and have practiced and I'm comfortable with, and taking that and like leaning into my strengths, as well as like trying to bolster maybe those things that are a little lower on the list, especially the ones that are important to me. Because there's no way I want a group of 18 people and have like half the group not feel included in the group.
Yeah. And that would make sense too, why your one-on-one would do well if communication is a high one. When you're one-on-one with someone, I would imagine that's where your strength would pop up, but it's a little harder when you're in big groups.
Yeah. And so how to take that group and have mini one-on-one sessions
to
find ways to connect so that people feel included. So it was really interesting to me to see that list. And I think my number one, which I was actually a little disturbed at first. I was bothered by, but my number one was competition. I'm like, how is my number one strength being competitive? And at first I was like, I saw that as a negative. Like, I don't want to be that competitive person. That's always, you know what I mean? But taking that and understanding the positives that come with that trait. So it was really interesting, and highly recommend if anyone. I think getting the top 5 was free. Is that right?
It may be like $20. It's less. I had gotten to do it for free with a coupon. And I found out that mine wasn't competitive. Mine's Maximizer for my number one. But I was going through looking at what the qualities of a maximizer are. And it was interesting to me because a lot of the qualities of a maximizer were things that I thought were annoying qualities of myself. I was like, oh, I don't like this thing about myself. And then I saw it was my strength. And I was like, oh, the things that I think are annoying are actually my strength, and just learning how to use that. So the Strength Finder and Human Design, like combining both of those, have really helped me to understand how to lean into like, oh, this is actually part of who I am, and to accept that rather than be like, I don't like this about myself.
Yeah, that's really cool. You guys did that. I'm definitely going to go do it for sure. And I think it's interesting too that both of you guys. So I have this theory about people, right? Totally just like my own personal thought. No like research on this whatsoever. Okay?
Disclaimer.
Go on.
Yeah, just to be clear, right?
So we're gonna take this as truth.
Right. So I have this thought, and I had a teacher once that told me, I think it was a psychology or religion class, that he said, have you ever met somebody and you don't know anything about them and you just don't like them immediately, right? And a lot of people I think nowadays would be like, well, that's like your vibe check, right? That's like, ooh, like, no, you want to get away from them. But what he told me was that that's actually your shadow popping up, because it's a piece of you that you don't like, that you're seeing in another human being. And most people don't have the self-awareness to be able to recognize that in the moment and then push through it, right? So my thought with a lot of people, and I realized this with myself too, as I went on my own personal development journey, is the things that I have an immediate resistance to almost always are the things I need to lean into more, not that I need to go away from. And I think in our world right now, so many people are like, no, if I don't like this, I'm just going to walk away from it completely, instead of taking a second. And that's why when we started, take a second look at things, right? Take a second look and like take a step back and like, let me look at this, like do it. And there's things where it's like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, you're right. Trust your vibes. Like, you should probably not jump off that cliff, but then there's other things that are like, okay, maybe I need to lean into this a little bit more. Maybe I need to think about how this is helping me, not hurting me. I'm a very competitive person too, and like very competitive. And for the longest time, I looked at it like it was this really like I couldn't control it, right? And I think it was the soccer game I was playing. And we were playing this other like really good team. It was like a big game, right? For over 30, big for over 30, right? And this other team was pretty good. And I remember like taking an extra scoop of pre-workout beforehand. Bad idea, don't suggest it. But the first 15 minutes, I was like super aggressive and over the top. And we beat like the first 20 minutes of the game, we were up like 5-0. And I remember the look in these guys' eyes that were like, dude, we need to stay away from this guy, like big time. And it was the first time I realized, like, dang, do I really want to be giving other people like in this non-competitive league, like that type of feeling about me. And then I started thinking about, dang, I'm not really competing with other people. I'm just competing with me. That's it, right? The former version of me. And as long as I'm keeping it on that, and it's not about anyone else, as long as it's about me and I'm competing against myself, this is a huge benefit for me to be competitive, So that's what you guys did that. I'm definitely gonna do it after this call now.
Yeah. And I think some of that, for me at least, has come with age, right? So first of all, at 45, I'm not going to compete against the 25-year-olds at my gym. just
Yeah.
just is not working out well for me that way. But you're right, also realizing that the competition doesn't necessarily need to be external, and trying to be better than other people. And really it is just about how can you be a better person than you were yesterday. So I like that. And I concur.
Awesome. Now I'm gonna go do some official research so I can get out there.
Exactly. So, I mean, we kind of touched on this, but what is the social rebellion that you're doing with your work, or that you've started with your work?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because this really does for me and Jenny, it definitely does feel like a rebellion. I'm not sure what you guys think. I'm actually curious to hear what you guys feel about this, but I feel like there's a bit of there's a lot of negative talk revolving around relationships, right? And a lot of it that are like, well, you shouldn't be in relationships, right? Like they're toxic, and like, right? Which for me, I'm always like eye roll when I hear toxic, right? But I definitely feel like people are struggling with relationships with themselves, and that's why they're struggling in relationships with other people. And there's a lot, Kristen, from Enlifted. I'm not sure if Krania, if you've done Enlifted as well. Have you? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Level
So
3.
then Oh, awesome.
Yeah, with Kristen.
Right, cool.
We're the first class.
Oh, geez.
Nice. Let's do this. That's awesome. Right. So like you guys know this too. Victim mentality. It's a thing. It's a huge thing in our culture, right? Where people are like blaming other people for stuff that they're completely in control over, And so for us, I really do feel like it's a rebellion. And I feel like right now too, being able, like living a happy, fulfilled life where you are enjoying living is like a rebellion in of itself, because so many people are like, well, the world's in this like shitty place, right? And you're not supposed to be happy. Like, what? And I'm like, and I tell people, like, what are you talking about? Like, if we lived 150 years ago, you'd be dead right now at 30 years old. You'd be dead. What are you talking about? Like, you have the entire world's information on your phone right now, right? Like, do you know how incredible that is? That we can think about this right now. You're in another country. You're in another state right now, right? Like, we're in 2 different time zones right now having a conversation. What? Right. And like people, right, and people are complaining as if we're living in this like terrible time period. And I get that there are problems. I understand, like I get it, I completely understand, and there are things that we can do better with in a lot of different areas of the world. And at the same time, we're not going to get there by focusing on negativity, focusing on anger and animosity and the victim mentality. And so I really do feel like this is a social rebellion, and I feel like our community is the best ones to start tackling it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just more the fact that the issues of the world are more visible because of all the technology. Like that shit's always been there. We just didn't get to see it. Like when I was a kid, my family being in Bermuda, I remember like, we never got to talk. We hardly got to talk to them because it's a really expensive long distance phone call. And now we take for granted, like, oh God, my uncle's FaceTiming me again. Like, what do you want? You know what I mean? Like, like you forget how just, not that long ago, you were so separated from people. And now we really are able to be connected. Maybe not in person, but at least virtually.
Yeah. And everybody that's listening gets to be connected through their phone to be able to listen to this conversation we're having right now. So,
and hopefully it's learning from it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I think it was Mel Robbins that did some homework on just like your odds of being born. She found it's 300 trillion to 1 that you're born. That's insane. Like you hit the lottery just by being born. Like you hit the lottery 2 or 3 times just by being alive. It's like, dude, like I'd be grateful.
That's an interesting concept because like if we're going to conception on this, like you have to have the right sperm and the right egg at the right moment in order to for you as who you are to be born. Like different sperm, different egg, and I wouldn't have been here.
Exactly. Right. And and it's incredible. Like we all came like from one cell. Like you were one cell and now you're a human being. And that's like, for me, it's like, dude, what am I complaining about? Like there's no reason to complain. Like go out and live your life and enjoy it and live love, right? Like be you. And like I think that's the thing we're missing in the world right now. But I also think we're turning a corner. I think so. This is just my gut instinct from when I talk to people. I think they're starting to realize this and starting to realize, like, wait a second, I don't have to be upset, right? And I can start shifting the way I look at things, right? And I think media plays a role in that too, right? Like if you spend too much time online, you start thinking that the whole world is just like horrendous, and then like you go look outside and everyone starts smiling at you, and you're like, wait a second, what? I'm confused right now, you know? So I tell people to get off your phone and get outside.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think it's a lot easier to be optimistic when you do surround yourself with people that are also optimistic, right? So, I mean, I think it's easy for us as like enlifted coaches and part of like a really great community to say, yeah, things are getting better. Look how awesome everybody is. Whereas we've curated that community for ourselves. And so it is sometimes like, well, we don't have cables. We're not sitting here watching the news, but to have, and I was telling Kristen about a client I released recently, and like just to have this such a negative energy, and like it felt so oppressive. And you know, I was trying to talk myself up as a coach, like it's my job to help and to have an impact. But like compared to the rest of the community that I am, clients and friends that I've surrounded myself with, it was so noticeable and so heavy of an energy that when it didn't work out, I was quite relieved, like I said, to release that. I think it becomes as more of a shock when, like, to me now, when I come across that kind of energy, especially in person. But yeah, we also, as the creators of our lives, we get to curate what our community looks like too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the first things I have most of my clients do, is I have them think about their social media like as if they are an art curator, right? So like, well, if you had your own art exhibit, you'd put up the best art, wouldn't you? And you'd put up things that what you want to see, would you not?
Puppy
and
pictures.
Usually they're like, yeah, exactly, right? Like whatever, like you want to see puppies all day, then follow all the puppy pages, like, and I tell people to do that, and it's amazing to me how much people, when they start doing it, they start like, oh dang, I can't do that. I can't unfollow someone, or I can mute someone, or like whatever. And that mute button is great now, because now if it's like a family member, right, or something like that, or a good friend that you've had for a long time, but it's always posting some like stuff that you're like, I don't really want to see this, hit that mute button and you're good. You don't got to unfollow them, And like those are things where like it makes a big difference. What you put in front of you, big difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can unfollow instead of unfriend, so that you don't have to see what they're putting up there, but they still see you as a friend. So in this day and age, some people take it personally if you're no longer friends with them on social media, unfortunately. So yeah, you can unfollow so that you're not seeing what's there and still maintain that relationship in real life.
Yeah, whoever thought of that had a good idea. Sure.
Yeah. They probably were like, I'm so sick of hearing all this political stuff from my relatives, but I have to see them and I don't want to fight with them all the time.
Yeah. I can imagine them like in a meeting room, like, hey, like what wouldn't it be nice if we could just like mute this person but not unfollow them so we don't have that conversation? Someone's also like, yeah, that'd be a great idea. Can we do that? Hey, can we do that? Yeah, we can do that. Awesome. Right. Let's do that.
We're muting Aunt Helen.
Right?
I don't want to hear any more about
this. Yeah.
So you've gotten on the social rebellion. A few years ago, you changed how you're viewing things too. So what are some of the small or big actions, bold actions that you've taken along the way to get here today?
Yeah, so the biggest one that we did was start our own LLC. And should have done it sooner. To anyone watching that's thinking about starting a business, do not wait, start the business, like do it, right? And should have done it earlier. We were already coaching, we were already talking to people about this stuff, and we should have done it earlier. So that was the first big thing that we did, was like, we're going to take a risk and go out on our own and go try to build this life for ourselves. And I think that was a huge step for us in choosing to live a different life that our parents had, that anyone really around us had even had at that time. And I think that kickstarted a lot of it too, because then you start being around other business owners. It just starts happening, right? That's when your Roz kicks in and starts bringing in all these other people, right? And that was a big step for us. And then over the last few months, we've really kicked it up a notch. So we have a podcast coming out on the 22nd. That's super exciting. So our idea with our company was Inspire Change Collective, right? That's the name of our company. And the idea of the collective is that I'm good at some things, but I am not good at everything. So I'm about to go get someone else who's really good at what they do, bring them on here, and then we can all start sharing from this idea, right? That and I'm really comfortable with that. Probably 10 years ago, I might not have been. I might have been like, I need to go learn about this so I can talk about it. And we're both really comfortable now with, I'm good at this. I don't need to be good at everything. Right. And that's totally okay with me now. Right. And that's being able to put the ego to the side. Right. Don't have to know everything. Just got to have confidence that you can figure it out. Right. So that was one thing. The podcast is coming out. We have a couple courses that we put out as well. So what we found, and I don't know if you guys have found this as well, but we tend to have the same conversations with people when we first talk to them. It's like the exact same conversation that we have with like everybody. And like, obviously the circumstances change. So what we wanted to do was make the basic conversations that we have into a simple, easy to digest course that people, and affordable too. That was a big thing for us. Right. So Jenny grew up in Southgate, California, which is a couple cities over from Compton. Most people know who Compton is, right? Couple cities over. And so her big thing was like, we want to get this information to people that wouldn't necessarily get it and might not be able to afford, a $1,500 3-month coaching package, right? And so we wanted to build something that we could also just give away to people too, right? Like, here's a free code, like just do it. It'll help you. So we built the course. And then in our relationship too, we like to talk to people about too, the way that we communicate with each other has like completely shifted. That's like on a daily basis, right? And even the way we argue has changed now too, right? And like, when we get into fights, it's actually really funny. We just had this conversation. I feel like if someone else watched us fight, they wouldn't think we're in a fight, but like, we know we're having a fight right now. And it's like, but the way our communication style has changed because of all the work that we've done and the conversations we've had, both with ourselves, with other people, being coached by other people, listening to other people, has shifted a lot. And so it's a daily thing, a daily, weekly, monthly thing that we're just excited. Like, honestly, we're both in this point where we're just like in love with life and in love with the life we're creating as well.
Awesome. So, whether the work that you've done or the work that you do with your clients, what are some of the more uncomfortable questions that you've asked yourself or you've gotten your clients to ask themselves?
Yeah, a lot of them for me stem from those like childhood traumas. And so I mentioned earlier that I grew up in foster care. So a big switching point for me was when I came to terms with the abandonment that happened from me at a young age, right? And then the people-pleasing tendencies because of that, right? And so for me, the uncomfortable ones tend to be when we go back to that like 2 to 7 year old range. And it's incredible to me how detailed people can remember things when you ask the right questions, right? And it can be a little uncomfortable. I definitely have to be, when I have conversations with people, I have to remind them. The compassionate curiosity comes up a lot. And I remind them that like, hey, this is what we signed up for, right? Like, this is going to help you by coming to terms with these things. It can be uncomfortable sitting in the silence. Can be a little uncomfortable as well. Sometimes more than others. It depends on the conversation. But yeah, I would say dealing with childhood traumas is a big thing, because I think so many of us have it. And as you mentioned too about like earlier with these things were happening, we just didn't talk about them. I think so many of us, especially in our generation and some of the older generations too, just didn't talk about things that happened to them. It wasn't appropriate. You didn't talk about it, and so many of them have these things that have been they're deep rooted in who they are, the identity of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't even think to process it and say, well, I don't have to let this be part of my identity.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you pose those things, it can be, some of them can, I honestly say, like, I think Mark says this too, that we get paid to make people cry, you know? And like, honestly, it's true. It is, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
because so many people, they find it and they cry. And I think it's a good cry though. And I think so many of us too. I work with a lot of men now, and it's very refreshing for me when a man recognizes this and cries. For me, I think it's a strength thing. And I think a lot of men don't even realize it until they go through this. It takes a lot of strength to process something from your childhood and then cry, because crying is very healing and very therapeutic, very much so. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of it. And we obviously guys get told from the time they're a child, you know, don't be a girl, don't be a bitch, don't be this, don't be that, whatever words you want to throw in there. And I find it so powerful when we can let these identities that the world puts on us go and be who we are.
Yeah.
You know, so.
No, absolutely. I mean, I definitely, when my my one-on-one time with Mark, I mean, I've definitely told him things that I never talked about with anybody. You know, and there was a lot of tears, like mostly. I think before I even started crying, or before I even started talking, there was tears, because I knew what we were going to talk about. So yeah, I do find it really healing to talk about it, to change those stories and to release them for sure.
Yeah, I did an ancestral. Well, I was supposed to be doing business coaching with Mark, and it got to my money story. And I was like, I don't know what to charge for coaching, because I've been a teacher. I don't think I've ever valued my money, my time. And so he started asking questions about like my mom's story, which I was like, I have had a few stories I wrote down, but then I was like, I don't have like too many memories. So he had me lean into the feels, and we started doing ancestral releasing, and I cried for like the next half hour. They're coming out of me. And that, like, in these tears, it's the energy in motion. Like these releasing statements were going deep and releasing this pent up emotion that my body had been holding and I didn't know was there. And so I've noticed too, there's a difference in how I feel if it's an indulgent cry versus releasing emotion. And release an emotion, usually my eyes feel pretty okay afterwards. If I've indulged myself, my eyes are swollen, I'm stuffed up. I'm gonna look like I cried for the next 5 hours. So yeah,
it's very different. Those ancestral ones are powerful. So when I did mine first before Jenny did, and then Jenny and I did one together as well. And so the first one that I did, so I am half Scottish and half West African. Okay. I didn't meet my dad until I was 18 years old. Okay. And I grew up with my grandma, really, who thought we were Irish, by the way. Thanks, fans. Thank God for Ancestral DNA, because we corrected that. So when I first did mine, one of the things I said I released the shackles that had been part of my ancestral lineage. And I'm a very, very, very visual person. Like when I do meditations and stuff, I get all kinds of like visual things, like, and it's almost like a movie for me. And I just sit back and watch almost. And I had both sides of my ancestral lineage hug each other and then hug me. And they both said, thank you to me for releasing both of them. And I thought it was interesting because I thought it would just be my African side when I said it. And it wasn't, right? It was both sides that had been shackled by their own belief systems and their own things that happened in their life. And so for me, being able to accept the light and the dark as who I am, and I'm a product of all that have come before me, was beautiful. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And I'm kind of a crybaby anyways. You might not notice that, but I totally am, honestly.
Are you a Pisces?
I'm not. I'm a Cancer though. Close. So,
since we talked about astrology earlier, I thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, and I'm definitely like sensitive for sure. And I used to think that's another one of those things that we talk about things that usually resistant to. For a long time I was like, like just I'm non-emotional. And probably over the last like 4 or 5 years I've like dived into it, and it's such a strength for me, such a strength, because I walk into rooms with people and I can immediately see like, and I can feel it out, and my body like starts tingling, and I can like tell who's the person that I can go deep with, who's the person that I have to like kind of drag into something, and who's the person I can like leave breadcrumbs for, you know. And I love leaving breadcrumbs. That's my thing. And I feel like a good teacher and a good, like, anybody that works with people is like, breadcrumbs are the thing for me. Like, if you just leave a little bit, just a little bit, they'll come, and they'll come on their own. But it's not me that forced them, it's them that chose to take the walk. And it's so much more powerful when that happens, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Thinking of those
Those are cool. I
breadcrumbs
like you guys.
conversations. That's fun.
Yeah.
If you can't tell, we're having fun. But I was thinking of those breadcrumbs with information too, like when people can put the right breadcrumb out in a conversation too, and you're like, go on, tell me more.
Exactly.
I want to know. So,
Yep.
yeah, or just even like putting out a little bit of information to have them be like, oh, okay, yeah, I see that. Can you give me some more? So yeah, it's a good visual too.
Absolutely. Yep. How do you think I got here? I left you a breadcrumb.
And so
and it worked.
Just out of curiosity, so and Lifted has a new Ancestor course coming out. Are you we're both going to be doing it. Are you in it?
So we are not, and the reason why we're not is not because we don't want to. We're definitely going to, but we might be on a TV show in Australia or New Zealand. I'm sorry. So there's a new TV show. Don't tell anybody. If you're listening to this, don't tell everybody. Right. But
secret.
So we're in the last stages of potentially being on this TV show in New Zealand. They're gonna fly us out. It's kind of like The Amazing Race, a little bit more intense. I'm not gonna say anything more because I'm gonna get in trouble. But if we get on it, which there's a very high likelihood that we will, we're going to be gone for 3 months out of it. Okay. And so we won't be able to do it. And I'm the type of person, Jenny is as well. If we're going to do something, I'm going full fledged into this. So like, you know, I'm not a 50-50 type of person, you know? So,
so by the time this comes out, Eric and Jenny will most likely be in the middle of what's happening.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what does good trouble mean to you, and what good trouble have you guys been making lately?
I think for me, good trouble is when you shake things up in a manner that's going to help people. And I think this is the perfect time that we're living in the perfect era to get into some good trouble, right? And I think when we talked about the social rebellion, when you asked that, right? I think being able to like shake people out of what they think they know it's a big deal. And it is trouble because it goes against the status quo, right? And I mean, you see that right now with Joe Rogan right now, right? He's getting like vilified in the media right now because he's choosing to go against the grain. And he's choosing not to follow the normal narrative. And some of the things he comes out with, they're a little like, I don't know about this. But the point is that like, we don't need to just like follow what we've been told. We got to figure out things on our own and try some other ways of thinking about things. And so what I like to think about for good trouble is shifting the perspective of the way I'm looking at a problem. Right. And so if I have a problem and I'm looking at it straight on, well, I should shift me. Instead of trying to fix the problem from here, I should shift the way I'm looking at it, which I'm always in control of. Right. I'm always in control of the way I see something. That'll shift the way I see it and therefore the way I solve it. Right. And I think in our era right now, I'm so grateful to be alive in this era, like so grateful. And because like, I think that we're at this time period in history where not only like technology wise can we get out to a lot of people, I think we have audiences that are huge now. Like people are looking for this like something different. They're looking for it because I think they're starting to realize that some of the things that we've been told about the way we're supposed to exist in the world just aren't matching up anymore. They don't feel as good. They don't feel as natural. They don't feel like it's helping us live and evolve, right? So how are we doing that? any way I can. Everywhere I go, I'm constantly challenging people. And I'm also the type of person too, that I'm open to being challenged as well. So if I say something and somebody's like, well, I don't necessarily believe in that, cool, just tell me what you think. Let's talk about it then, and let's have a conversation. And I'm more than willing to change my mind, more than willing. As long as you got a good set of information that we can back up and have a conversation around, I'm totally cool with changing my mind. And I think that's something, even that in and of itself, that's not common in today's world, right? I just saw, I don't know if you guys have seen Explained on Netflix. If you haven't watched Explained, go watch Explained. It's awesome. They just take their 30-minute episodes. They're super simple. They take a basic concept and they deep dive and explain how it comes. And they were doing brainwashing a couple weeks ago, right? Which is technically, I think it's like a phrase from like World War II or something like that. I don't know. But they were talking about what happens with people when you believe something. The part of your brain that is logical, that can change your mind, actually shuts off. And that's why people, when they have a firm held belief, usually that's tied to their identity, right? It doesn't matter what kind of information you give them. They will not listen to it or even take it into account, right? And for me, that's fascinating that your brain can do that. Like, it's incredible that your brain is that powerful. That literally is like, nope, we're going to turn this piece off. And for me, though, I think the asking questions and having some self-awareness and being willing to be challenged in a respectful manner is where we overcome that and evolve rather than have a revolution, which I think, did you see Chase post about that? About a revolution instead of an evolution?
Don't remember.
Sure. So a revolution by definition is cyclical. So you start here, you do a revolution, it comes back to the same point, right? So if we wanted to have a social revolution, it would be changing a bunch of things and then getting back to the same place, right? Evolving and evolution is about taking what we've learned and moving forward with it while having respect for the past, but we move forward and we don't come back to the same spot. Right. So I think we're living in a wonderful era where we're evolving. It's just, how do I put this? There's people that are struggling to come to terms with the aspect of being wrong about something and being challenged. So I think that's a crucial part of being a person, is being willing to say you're wrong about something, or you learn new information and now you feel a certain way. So yeah, that was a long answer. I'm sorry.
I think there's a fear too of some people of just being left behind.
Sure.
To releasing the, how should we say this nicely? Releasing the, things in society that were benefiting them only.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
It would be, I imagine it'd be scary to release those privileges, because I think people think to release their privilege rather than sharing that privilege just means that they would get less. So there's a lot of resistance as well.
Yeah.
People don't want less.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, because I've always had this notion of the world, like there's more than enough for everyone. Right? Like more than enough. Like look around, right? Like, and that kind of goes back to when we were talking about competing. I'm not competing against other people. Like we can all win, right? And there are definitely people, I 100% agree with you. There are some people that their brain can't compute. All of us can have everything we want. All of us can. And that's totally possible, right? Not even possible, I would say probable, if we all continued to live and love, and be who you are, like, and not being in competition with everyone else,
Have you seen the movie In Time? It's an older movie with Justin Timberlake.
Is that the one where they have like literally an amount of time and they like, it's like they barter it?
So in the movie, time is more compared to money. However, with what you were saying right there, like there's this really wealthy guy that most of many of the people are living literally day to day. Like each day they clock into work, they get that day's amount of life, and they need to go show up the next day to get the rest of their time. And if their clock runs out, they immediately die right then. But as long as the clock's going, they get to continue to be 25 forever living.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyhow, there's this one really rich guy. He could live for 108 years. And he's like, this isn't worth it. I don't want to live forever. Like with the time he currently has, he could live and do nothing. So he decides he doesn't want to live anymore. He doesn't want this to be the thing. And he runs into Justin Timberlake's character, who's literally living day to day. And in this, like his idea behind it, like it ends up becoming a Bonnie and Clyde type story, but the wealthy guy's idea is there is more than enough for everybody to live a full, happy life. And what he wanted was that message to be put out there. It was like, there's more than enough for everybody. We do not need to hoard it between the top 5% in the world. Yeah. And that was being compared to money. But that message right there was the part that stuck out to me. Was like, yeah, there's more than enough. And we can, like, I don't need to hold tight to my values and be like, this is the only way. And it's not like my world's going to fall apart. Like there's more than enough love. There's more than enough for us to be able to share, for everybody to live the life that they want to live. And it's a matter of like be gifting out too. Like I have this thing I can give to you, and learning how to share it with each other, what we have.
The only thing that's running through my mind is like, welcome to socialism, you guys.
Right.
I've been waiting for you. Come on over. Come on up. Anywho.
No, I get what you mean. Yeah. But I also think there's yeah, it's funny to say welcome to socialism.
I mean, I don't want to point it out, but
no,
well, look, we're coming away from the money part and the resources.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It was like the one thing that was like, I'm like, yeah, talking my language. See, I need both of you up in Canada, and you can help spread the love and the wealth.
Right.
You guys are like, no, that's not what I meant.
I would love to go to Canada and spread it. I would love to. Let's do this. Yeah, no, I'm with you completely though. I do think that there's more than enough for people, and there's a fear of losing things once you get more. Mm-hmm. You know, and then the fear drives people. But as we know, like fear is not a good driving factor. I know that's a negation, but it's also like a very intentional one. It's one of those ones we want to avoid completely. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, it's probably the most prevalent driving factor for most people.
Yep. Unfortunately, yeah, it is. And that's the work though that we do, right? Shifting the way people see that, you know. So
yeah, speaking of that work, you've told us some about your podcast and your courses. Is there anything more you want to share in regards to your podcast or your Strength Through Storywork course?
Just that we are super excited to do it. We have so many more that we have like outlines for, and that we're ready to put out there. Our biggest thing is getting this information out to as many people as we possibly can. We also so part of the reason, one of the things that I struggled with, and you kind of talked about it too, with like charging people too, right? So one of the things we both want to do is start a nonprofit where we can give away all these things to the youth, really, to kids. I was fortunate enough to be part of a lot of youth programs shaped who I am. And so a big part of our journey is let's make our business successful so that I can turn around and give this away to a bunch of people who really need it. So we're excited. Yeah. We're like really excited. This feels like a really good year. I turned 33 this year. And so Jenny was 33 last year, and it was a huge year for her. And we're excited. We're on board full-fledged and ready to go and change the world, honestly. And I do believe that, you know, a handful of people can change the course of history.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And speaking of the youth, you and I had chatted about writing children's books. So Are you in the process of writing your book?
So I put that on the back burner
Okay.
for the moment, just for the moment. So I wrote the whole story, and there were a couple. So I'm debating on whether I want to expand on it and make it a little bit more detailed or keep it short. My gut is telling me expand and make it more. I really enjoy writing, and I have an incredible imagination, like incredible. So I would really like to expand it and make it a little bit longer. Not quite like Harry Potter long, but like maybe in that like range. You know, I'm thinking like 200-300 pages or so, something like that.
So a chapter book.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And so I had a lot of ideas once I finished the basic part of it. Then my mind was like, context. I need to throw in context here. I need to throw in context here. I need to throw in context there. And then it started turning into this whole other story where I was creating backstories for all these other characters, right? And so I will definitely be finishing it this year. Definitely. There's just a few things that we're doing right now that they're in the forefront right now. So.
I understand that backstories and creating all of that. Because I was working on with language ninjas. I'm like, how can this work? And I was actually at the time struggling with the actual character of the main characters, like the ninjas individually. I was struggling there, but I'm like, I've got backstory and I've got all the villains and like who they can battle, and I had loads and loads of information there, and then I was struggling with the actual like who the characters would be, and then now that I have the abracadabra, I know what to do in picture book format. Like Rachel, my illustrator, and I were like, yeah, these are the ninjas. Like this is their story before before they are the ninjas. So that has been helping me too, to be like, oh, these are who the ninjas are. I get to know them before they're ninjas, and then when I'm ready for the chapter books, then they already have their character. But yeah, it can be really fun creating all that backstory.
Oh, it was incredible.
Like,
it was fun. Yeah.
Because then it's like, if you really wanted to, you could do like prequels or like this character over here developing and
So I did a lot of theater when I was younger. A lot of theater. And one of the things that they would make us all do for the character, we'd have this whole page sheet where we had to answer all these questions, and they were like emotional questions about a character. So as soon as I started writing it, then my mind immediately went to that, and it was like, well, I need to answer all these questions before I can put this person in there, otherwise I don't know enough about them, and how can I throw them in there, blah 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 blah, blah. All these questions started rattling around in my head, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be longer of a kid's book for sure. This is gonna be long. And so I did that. I wrote the outline for it, and what I would like to do is when we get home from the New Zealand trip, is sit down for like a month and just go crush it every day and go do it. I really enjoy writing. I always have since I was a kid. I used to make up stories all the time and write them. I actually found the last time we went home, I found like 4 or 5 stories that were like incredibly detailed for like a 4th grader. And so that's how my mind has always worked. And now I'm just using it to my strength now. I'm using it to help me. So.
Well, we look forward to that whenever it's ready.
Thank you.
Where can our listeners go to find out more about you?
Yes. So we have a website. It's inspirechangeco.com. We also have our Instagram page, which is inspirechangeco @inspirechangeco on Instagram. My personal Instagram is @ExistEric. And so I got that from one of the schools of thought that I really enjoy is existentialism. How can I exist as a more fulfilled individual? And then obviously my name's Eric, so it was like cool little wordplay. So that's my page. If you want to follow my wife too, Joyful Jenny, she's amazing as well. And we talk about a lot of similar things on there. And yeah, love to hear back from anyone.
And how would you recommend that our listeners start their own pirate life with, to start their journey, taking small, bold actions, creating good trouble, what have you?
So for me, I think the biggest thing is find what lights you up, right? That's where it starts. Have self-awareness, what lights you up, and then go for it. Go for it. Whatever it is, go for it. And then I think share it with people. And I think being willing to be seen in the world today is a great thing. I think so many of us diminish our own light for fear of what someone else will say, will think. And I am here to say, fuck that, excuse my language. But honestly,
we're pirates
just
here.
like, yeah, man, forget about that, man. Like, there's too many people in the world that are diminishing their light. We need more people that are willing to stand up for what they believe in. More people that are willing to fight for it, and believe and be willing to live a happy life, whatever that means to you. And so for me, I would say, find what lights you up. That's the starting ground for all of it. Find it and then go for it and hold on to it and do it.
Absolutely. And do you have anything else that you want to share with us or our listeners, or any questions you have for us before we ask the last final important question of the day?
No. What's the last question? I'm excited now.
Well, it depends.
Right. No, I don't have any other questions. It's been an honor.
Awesome.
So do this with you guys. It's been a lot of fun. I've done some podcast interviews. They were not always as fun as this. Some of them are like very like straightforward, and they're very like, these are my questions and that's it. This is a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, we enjoyed having you on.
So, well, this last question very well could be your question. We're going to ask you, do you know any pirate jokes?
Yes, I knew it was coming. Okay. Why did the pirate join a Gold's Gym?
Oh, I don't know this one.
To improve his booty. Obviously. That's the only one I know. I'm sorry.
Well, we appreciate the fact that it was a new one that we hadn't heard.
Oh, good. I can imagine you guys get a lot of them.
Yeah.
Awesome. There's plenty of cheesy ones out there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like they have to be cheesy if it's pirate one, otherwise it's not a pirate joke, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you again, Eric. We had a lot of fun.
Thank you guys. It was wonderful to meet you, Karan, and Kristen too. I'm definitely going to Vancouver.
Excellent.
100%. I'm gonna go tell Jenny after this. And she's gonna be like, yes, let's go. She loves it, honestly.
On your way home from New Zealand, have you been to New Zealand before?
No, I haven't. I have not.
I would say it's one of my, like, other than Vancouver, it was one of those places where I went and I was like, I could live here. Yeah,
really?
It's really nice. Yeah,
that's amazing. We actually have some friends that used to work with Jenny at the gym that we were working at in California, and they moved to New Zealand. Yeah, they went there for like a week, and then we're like, yep, we're gonna move here. And so they moved. So we actually told the show, they were like, yeah, we'll book your flights, coming out and then going back home. We were like, nah, just book the flights over there. You don't gotta book once going home. It's all good. We're just gonna like find somewhere to stay.
Before you move away, I need to have a dance party with you and Jenny. Like, this is a requirement.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
100%. We do that, like, honestly, all the time. Like, we'll just like go into our kitchen and just like start dancing, like, all the time. That's like a fun thing that we do. And we started doing it like almost therapeutically, like when we're having like a little bit of like an off day. And we'll just like, all right, cool, go crank that real quick. We're just gonna go get it for like 15 minutes.
Speaking of, I'll share you the link, but we have Pirate Radio that our friend Brady Brewer, who we interviewed a while back, he did a collective like for the group, for the Pirate Living listeners. He put together a playlist that anybody can add to. So I'll send you that link, and we want to hear like some of your favorite dance
100%
moves. Yeah, add them.
Yeah. 100%. I'll put them on there, and you're just gonna be like, why am I just moving? What's happening to my body right now? I don't know. Yeah, definitely dance party for sure. 100%.
Yeah. All right, thanks. I mean, we're gonna keep saying thanks, so I'm gonna stop the recording.
All right.